Hello gamers! One of the most contemplated games of the year is out. Of course, it's none other than Cuphead, the delicious last course, an expansion of the original Cuphead game. It is the expansion that certainly favors quality over quantity. Irrespective of what the name indicates, Cuphead the Delicious Last Course is more than just a fruit tart on prime of the gourmand meal. That was the actual game. It is the most challenging and astonishing area. The expansion mainly goes around the 6 top boss fights. Every boss fight seems unyielding, which is the fun part. Several new types of equipment have made the game more desirable and charming. Each adds ingenious new techniques to fight bosses. There are also some gripping secrets with valuable bounties. The character of Miss Chalice is launched in this DLC that lessens the difficulty of challenges for Cuphead without ultimately putting it to easy mode. The idea of the game revolves around converting Miss Chalice into a living and breathing person. Miss Chalice has been seen in the main game as a spirit that accords super moves. Cuphead and his pal Mugman start moving towards an undiscovered isle to convert Miss Chalice into a person. They are told that Chef Saltbaker, the most excellent chef in the land, can help with his wonder tart. It is the only thing that can forever provide a body for Miss Chalice. Here comes a little twist. All of the ingredients for making the magical tart are guarded by powerful foes. Cuphead and Mugman have to defeat all the enemies to access them. The story is undoubtedly told with charming, quick cutscenes, but this is not the only reason anyone is here. The exceptional aesthetics and outstanding art are why it is notable and has come to meet fans' expectations. Thus, the stage is set for yet another round of the most striking 2D action platformer bosses anyone has ever seen. If new or unpracticed players start the game, they might want to fight with some other enemies to get familiar with the game first. Once the players get all the rules down, they can proceed towards the ruthless battle of the 6 bosses, as the 6 bosses in this DLC don't pull their punches. The first boss will attack with missiles that float around in the air, and there will be huge thorns on the ground that will force players to move quickly and change platforms. The difficulty will not end here because the platform will rise after certain intervals. It will be dangerous if the player gets raised along with the platform at the wrong time. Dwarf-like creatures will pop up from the floor to fire more projectiles. At this point, the player might think it cannot get any worse, but to their surprise, more gnomes will appear from the floor with big hammers. The gnomes will ensure that the player doesn't stay on the platform for a long time, and that's just the first chapter. Meanwhile, the mechanical difficulty of the bosses in the Delicious Last Course will increase with every step. As the level of difficulty hikes, so does the power of weapons. The upgraded weapons will help to keep a balance and make conditions more favorable for the player. The content of the Delicious Last Course is available nearly from the start of a new game, just after you clear the first mausoleum and meet Miss Chalice for the first time. The Delicious Last Course upgrade favors the player to play as Miss Chalice herself. While playing as Miss Chalice, the player will not be able to equip any weapons or charms. Still, to keep it a fair fight, Miss Chalice comes naturally with a double jump and a dodge, which helps to cross obstacles on the ground. A ward-off that makes it easier to dodge the objects coming straight on, and most crucially, 4 HP instead of the standard 3. It may look like a more accessible mode to many players, but it is not always the case. Miss Chalice has to use the double jump to get over certain obstacles because her single jump is much worse, and the player cannot cross hurdles unlike Cuphead. Miss Chalice's dash parry helps ward off objects coming straight for the player, but dash parry is much more challenging to use than the typical double jump. As mentioned earlier, Miss Chalice cannot equip any of the new powers available, like the Heart Ring, which gives players health on 1st, 3rd, and 6th parries, essentially giving the ability to double the HP if the player can successfully parry bosses' attacks. The most difficult fight of the game is the final boss fight with different and ruthless attacks. Because it is the final stage of the game, it is the most difficult to pass. Players should use the Astral Cookie charm for the final boss when they fight as Miss Chalice. Players can equip other weapons used by the chasers. The equipped weapons have auto-aiming so that players don't have to worry about aim. As for new weapons, the greatest of all is the homing weapon called the Crack Shot, which can be fired without overthinking about aiming. The Crack Shot drops a turret which can then be parried and launched into any enemy and cause extensive damage. This is the EX move of this weapon. The damage helps the player to get the coins needed to afford new weapons and charms. Earning the currency to purchase new equipment in the delicious last course is what you would expect from Cuphead, but it has been taken to an even greater degree, which is challenging yet fun to do. A series of mini-bosses has been introduced in the delicious last course, led by the King of Games. These mini-bosses are used as a replacement for the run-and-gun level from the main game. Early in the DLC, the player has to reach the King of Games' castle. To do so, the player has to climb a ladder. The King of Games' castle is a magnificent hand-sculpted model. After reaching the castle, the players are free to challenge any of the King of Games' champions. All the mini-boss fights are based on the theme of chess pieces. The mini-boss has a little twist that the player cannot equip any weapon or charm to attack. This series is a test of the players' parry techniques. The unique concept undoubtedly brings excitement to the players because tackling all the hurdles is fun, especially when a player tries the Gauntlet mode. Gauntlet mode challenges a player to beat all the mini-bosses in only one life, which is undoubtedly way more exciting than the run-and-gun levels in the main game. Studio MDHR's Maria Moldenhauer has declared that the animation frame count in this DLC alone is the same as the entire core game. It may sound crazy to the player before playing the game, because while playing it is incredible to see how quickly the frame changes with every step. Everything changes, from the background to the character's movement, in the blink of an eye. The battle gets transformed completely with every phase of each boss. The player will fight with an ice magician, and after defeating it, a devilish freezer will come on the battlefield, leading players to face the demented snowflake. All of this will happen throughout one battle. Every phase has almost 3 to 7 different attacks, framed with surprising details. The magic of Cuphead's boss design, and something that all bosses in this DLC exemplify, is that it throws a ton of stuff at you. A player can avoid all the attacks, but only if the player knows that they're coming. Every attack is extraordinarily well telegraphed, and the visual language is always straightforward. The delicious last course is an example of being tough but fair. It isn't easy to maintain this balance, but it is done skillfully in this expansion. Cuphead the Delicious Last Course perfectly exemplifies the phrase one of a kind because of its unbeatable traits. The players who already have experience with this game can probably make their way through 6 bosses and optional mini-bosses in a few hours. Still, the quality of those hours is just as, if not more significant than the quality of the bosses, including the King of Games. The mini-bosses are among the most refined in the game, and that's high praise considering how high the level has already been set. Once the primary campaign is completed, the game has a few tough challenges for the expert players, and for the players who want even more of a challenge. There is something for all players that will keep them on their toes in this delicious last course.